So about a year ago, I tested out the Aochuan Smart S2 Gimbal. This is a gimbal for smartphones, and I was pretty impressed by the features it offered for the price. So now that Aochuan has a new smartphone gimbal out, naturally I had to pick one up and test it out. The new gimbal from Aochuan is the Smart S2. This box is huge. It's actually kind of difficult to fit this box in my frame. But the gimbal has a huge box, and the gimbal itself is packed with a lot of features. Basically, in the box, you get the tripod mount right here, and you also have the main gimbal. I love the balancing features on this, super easy. Some gimbals are not at all easy to balance. Some are very difficult. This one of the easiest I've ever balanced. Let's talk about the balancing first, in fact. Let me get this set up and get my iPhone Pro 12 on here. Now, speaking of iPhone Pro 12, this gimbal does support up to 300 grams of payload. So as long as your phone and any accessories with it weigh 300 grams or less, the motors on here can handle that just fine. There'll be no problems there. So I'm gonna come around to the other side of that camera and put on my phone here, and I'm gonna show you how to balance it and use this gimbal so you can have a close-up perspective. So the first thing I wanna do is I wanna get my phone mounted on this gimbal. Now, the easiest way to figure out how to mount it is turn it toward you. So if you're sitting here at the gimbal, have the control buttons toward you. And what you want to do is you'll see this light right here. And you want to have this so that it can swing like this freely. And when you're mounting your phone, you may or may not be able to keep it in the case. It's gonna depend on the size of your phone and which model. And of course, you want to make sure your camera is facing outward here. In other words, you don't want to have this over here so the camera lines up with this. That would be problematic because you probably don't want to film this. So once you get it mounted on there, what you want to do is you want to turn it around this way. And what you're going to see is you're going to see these right here. And what these correspond to is these correspond to numbers. And basically, those represent each of these little notches. So if you have the gimbal like this, you can see it's a little bit out of balance. Here's how we'll know it's balanced. We'll know it's balanced when this stays about like so on its own, and you don't have to hold it in place. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna slide this a little bit this way. Slide it one more. All right, so I like that right there. And the key with the balance is having this axis balanced right here. It's really important that this sit about horizontal this way. So this axis, you don't want this to be tipping this way or this way. It's gonna be very hard on the motors and your footage will not be properly stabilized. The outer box case I have on my iPhone Pro 12 is a little bit bulky. So if you find this doesn't stay in here properly, you may have to remove the case on your phone. I like to keep mine on and I didn't lose it out when I was testing it all, but it is worth noting. So the way we'll power it on is we're gonna push and hold the power button right here. It's gonna power on. It's going to align the way it's supposed to there. And that's what it's gonna do after the initial power on. And of course, down here on the controls, you also have the record button, which is the red one right here. And basically, if you have it in photo mode, this will take a photo. If you have it in video mode, it's gonna take a video. Speaking of which, let me show you the Aochuan app. This is what that app looks like. It's got a lot of different options. It's got slow motion, it's got video, it's got photo, panorama, it's got inception mode along here too. And you have a lot of settings you can fine tune in here by going down here and clicking these. Tracking is a really useful feature on here. Just click this face symbol over here right above the record button. You can do face tracking, object tracking, body tracking. Face tracking is probably one of the most useful. So if you're vlogging with this and you have it facing toward you, you can track face really easily and it's gonna keep on you. Also, if you're recording somebody else, you can easily do that as well. It's going to automatically detect and follow that. You can do the same thing with object or body tracking. And you don't have to use the Aochuan app. You can use pretty much any video app that your phone supports. Another great thing about this is you can turn it to portrait orientation anytime you want to. So any mode that you're in, all you have to do is tap the trigger once, and it's gonna instantly turn it to portrait mode, which is great. So if you wanna do some vertical filming, say for Instagram or YouTube short, Tap it once to go portrait mode. Tap it once again, you'll go right back to landscape mode. So one of the features about this gimbal that's perhaps my favorite is the ability to extend it. So you can pull out, you can extend it out about 19 centimeters, which is fabulous because when you're filming with a phone, oftentimes if you're holding it with your hand, you're gonna be holding it out here, but it's still gonna be too close to your face. Your head's gonna take up too much of the frame. And if you're vlogging, you're not gonna see a lot of what's going on around you. In addition, your arm, depending on how you're holding it, it might be looking back along your arm, and you may not want that for your frame. So what I like about having this extended is you can have it way far away. So I filmed a sample clip talking to it with it fully extended so you can see how it frames it. Framing is really great. Let's take a look at that sample clip. But of course, one of the best features about this new S2 gimbal is you have the ability to extend it. So you can extend it outward, which is perfect for vlogging if you want to talk to your iPhone like I am right here. Because if you don't do that, your iPhone's gonna tend to be too close here and your head's gonna be taking up a lot of the frame. But if you can do this, this is great. Really like the framing on that. In my opinion, this is one of the best features on this gimbal, having the ability to extend it and then neatly tuck it away. You of course can extend anywhere in between. You don't have to have it all the way out. And the audio, speaking of, was from this gimbal as well. The audio in that clip, I was using the built-in microphone on this with the USB to Lightning cable connected to my iPhone Pro 12. Speaking of microphone, right there near the microphone, there is a light on this gimbal. The way you turn it on is you tap the power button once, tap it a second time to make it even brighter, tap it a third time to have maximum brightness. Now for me, that first level is plenty bright, but if you're in the dark or in really low light, you might need the second or third level. To turn off the light, just tap the power button once again, and the light goes off. In addition, this gimbal does have a cold shoe mount right here. So if you want to mount an external mic on here or some type of wireless mic, you can conveniently mount it right there. It doesn't really get in the way of anything. You do have this scroll wheel here, which can be set up in the Aochuan app to do zooming or to do manual focusing if you want to fine tune your focus. So I like the action of this. If I'm using my phone for vlogging, I'm typically just going to use autofocus, but if you want to use your phone for some real cinematic productions, this manual focus wheel here could be useful to you. And so right now I have my phone facing toward me, but if I want to put it back so it's facing the other way for my subject, all I have to do is tap the joystick twice, and it's going to rotate back around. So it's ready for me to film a subject in front of me again. It's also worth mentioning, Aochuan does say it has up to 20 hours of battery life. So I was out testing this out for a couple hours, and this still has, on the battery gauge, it still has the full charge. So I believe it that the gimbal could easily last 20 hours. I do like how solid this gimbal feels. This gimbal feels like I could drop it and it's probably not gonna break on me. It's probably gonna be fine. It is not waterproof, so of course don't take it in the water. But then again, most phones are not waterproof. So it's probably not gonna be an issue, but just something to consider. So all in all, I was quite impressed with the Aochuan Smart S2. It is a nice upgrade to the Smart X Pro, especially with the extendability that you can now use for vlogging. This right here is probably my favorite feature, along with the audio. The microphone that's built into it does a great job canceling other noises around you, and it focuses on enhancing your voice. It did a fabulous job in my test clips. It also feels like it's going to hold up well over time, and the motors are fabulous on here. They stabilize really well, and that's ultimately what I'm looking for in a gimbal. I want a gimbal that does a great job with stabilizing, and a gimbal that's also easy to mount and balance. I've linked to this gimbal in the description below if you want to check it out and see if it's right for you.